This is Aditi Devi Dasi in Canada.
Hare Krishna, Aditi Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining and giving your association. Welcome to the call.
Hare Krishna, Vinita Gandharvika Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharajas, and all glories to the assembled devotees. This is Tiffany in Pennsylvania. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Tiffany Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining and giving your association. Welcome to the call.
Hare Krishna, Vinita Gandharvika Mataji, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. And Guru Maharaj is my humble obeisances to you and all the devotees. This is Krishna Kumari Devi from Ghana.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Kumari Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining every single day and giving your association. Welcome to the call.
Hare Krishna, Vinita Gandharvika Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to... This is Anita Ramia from Sharjah.
Hare Krishna, Anita Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining every single day and giving your association. Welcome to the call.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Jai Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev. This is Hari Radha from Fairfax, Virginia, Washington. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Shri Hari Radha Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining every day and giving your association. Welcome to the call.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Sri Guru and Gauranga and all the assembled devotees. Yashamati from Chicago.
Hare Krishna, Yashmati Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining every day, mid-morning, early morning, and chanting so beautifully. Welcome to the call. We'll start the recording. Today, Prabhu had to leave little early. It seems just now I got a message. We'll start now. Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to Bhakti Sangha Japa conference call. Today, we are very fortunate to have His Grace Jayananada Gauranga Prabhu to enlighten us on the topic of Srimad Bhagavatam 6th Canto, 8th chapter, 31 to 33 verses. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for joining and giving your valuable time and association this morning. Before I hand over the call, I request Raj Prabhu for the brief introduction. Raj Prabhu, are you ready?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dhanva Pranam to you and all the assembled devotees. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Sri Guru and Gauranga. Hare Krishna, Dhanva Pranam Prabhuji. Welcome to the call. Here is a brief introduction for a very dear speaker today. His Grace Jayananada Gauranga Prabhuji is a disciple of His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Guru Maharaj. Prabhuji took to Krishna consciousness while at college in 1998. He did his undergraduate at BITS Pilani, his doctoral degree at Texas A&M, and postdoctoral work at the University of Wisconsin Madison. Prabhuji is a professor of obstetrics and gynecology in the United States. Prabhuji has been chanting 16 rounds for over 24 years and is very well versed in Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and has read Chaitanya Charitamrita over 50 times. He has been doing edifications of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam for the Bhakti Vrikshas. This is a brief introduction for Prabhuji. Over to you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Once again, thank you so much for your association this morning. I would like to hand over the call to you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Just checking you're able to see the PowerPoint slide and able to hear me as well, Mataji?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And I once again appreciate this opportunity to share some concepts related to this verse this morning. And I want to first thank Vinita Gandharvika Mataji for asking me to come this morning. And I also want to thank Raj Prabhu for introducing. Very kind of you, and thank you so much. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet nashtaprayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki Om Ajnanatimiraandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Dhanam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Now, for my humble obeisances and all the Vaishnavas here, today's discussion, I've made it a little technical, and hopefully it's something that this the devotees, hopefully that's what the devotees want for this morning. Let's see. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 8, verses 31 through 33. Yata hi bhagavaneva vastutah sat satchasa yat satyena na sarve yantu nasham upadravaha yathaikat Jnanubhavanam vikalparahitah swayam bhushana yuddhalingakya datthe shaktihi swamhayayam teneva satyamanena sarvajño bhagavan harihi patu sarvehi swaruperna sada sarvatra sarvagah Yatha hi bhagavaneva vastutah sadasachayat satyenanena na sarve yantunasham ubadhravaha yathai katmahanu bhavanam vikalparahita swayam bhushana yuddhalingakya datthe shaktihi swamaya teneva satyamanena sarvajño bhagavan harihi patu sarvehi swaruperna sada sarvatra sarvagah. These are the verses. Translation. Verse 31, the subtle and gross cosmic manifestation is material, but nevertheless, it is non-different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because He is the ultimate cause of all causes. Cause and effect are factually one, because the cause is present in the effect. Therefore, the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, can destroy all our dangers by any of his potent parts. Verse 32 through 33, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the living entities, the material energy, the spiritual energy, and the entire creation are all individual substances. In the ultimate analysis, however, together they constitute the Supreme One, the Personality of Godhead. Therefore, those who are advanced in spiritual knowledge see unity in diversity. For such advanced persons, the Lord's bodily decorations, his name, his frame, his attributes and forms, and the weapons in his hand are manifestations of the strength of his potency. According to their elevated understanding, the omniscient Lord who manifests various forms is present everywhere. May he always protect us everywhere from all calamities. Purport exists for the last verse 32-33. By his divine grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. A person highly elevated in spiritual knowledge knows that nothing exists but the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 9.4, where Krishna says, Maya tatam idam sarvam, indicating that everything we see is an expansion of the energy. of his energy. This is confirmed in the Vishnu Purana, Canto 1, Chapter 22, verse 52. Ekadesha sthitasya jyotsnya vistharini yatha parasya brahmanah shaktis tatedam akilam jagat. As a fire, although existing in one place, can expand its light and heat everywhere, so the omnipotent Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although situated in his spiritual abode, expands himself everywhere, in both the material and spiritual worlds, by his various energies. Since both cause and effect are the Supreme Lord, there is no difference between the cause and the effect. Consequently, the ornaments and the weapons of the Lord, being expansions of his spiritual energy, are not different from him. There is no difference between the Lord and his variously presented energies. This is also confirmed in the Padma Purana. Namachintamani Krishnas Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purna Shuddho Nitya Muktho Bhinna Tvam Namanamino. The holy name of the Lord is fully identical with the Lord, not partially. The word Purna means complete. The Lord is omnipotent and omniscient. And similarly, his name, form, qualities, paraphernalia, and everything pertaining to him are completely pure and eternal and free from all material contamination. The prayer to the ornaments and the carriers of the Lord is not false, for they are as good as the Lord. Since the Lord is all-pervasive, he exists in everything, and everything exists in him. Therefore, even the worship of the Lord's weapons or ornaments has the same potency as the worship of the Lord. Mayavadis refuse to accept the form of the Lord, or they say that the form of the Lord is Maya or false. But one should note very carefully that this is not acceptable. Although the Lord's original form and his impersonal expansion are one, the Lord maintains his form, qualities, and abode eternally. Therefore, this prayer says, Patu sarvhe swaruper na sada sarvatra samagga. May the Lord, who is all-pervasive in his various forms, protect us everywhere. The Lord is always present everywhere by his name, form, qualities, attributes, and paraphernalia, and they all have equal power to protect the devotees. Srila Madhvacharya explains as follows. Eka eva paro Vishnu bhushaheti dvajeshvajaha tat shakti pradatvena swayam eva vyavastitaha satyenanena mamdevaha patu sarveshvaro hariji. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. These are very nice verses, and they explain philosophy of Achintya Bheda Veda. Specifically here, they explain more of a Bheda, but they also talk about the Veda aspect as well. And in fact, these two verses are very helpful for us to understand Achintya Bheda Veda. So what I have done today is, I hope the exalted devotees who are assembled here will be okay with my presentation today. I have made this as a small, a very mini thesis work on Achintya Bheda Veda. And it's not very comprehensive because we can do this for several lectures. But I've just made this something that will fit within about 45-50 minutes. And let's first start with the definition of Achintya Bheda Veda. Jiva Goswami, and a lot of what I'm presenting today is an analysis of Jiva Goswami. Jiva Goswami wrote the 6 Sandarbhas, called as the Shat Sandarbha, which comprises of the first one is the Tattva Sandarbha, then you have the Bhagavat Sandarbha, Krishna Sandarbha, and so on. And then there is one Sandarbha which has a lot of philosophical concepts in it, called as Paramatma Sandarbha. The Shat Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami himself has written a commentary for it, which is included as part of all his the Shats and the Sat. It is not like a separate book, but it comes in between the Shat Sandarbha, and which is called as Sarva Sambhadini. In 78 Anucheda of the Paramatma Sandarbha, there is a Sarvasambhadini commentary. There are actually two verses which I am going to make as the basis for this morning's discussion. And this discussion will entirely support these two Bhagavatam verses for today. And the verse 77, so my analysis that I'll be doing today is both verse 77 and 78. But I'm going to start with 78 because this is where the word Achintya Bheda Bheda was first ever used. Swamate tva achintya bhedha bheda vyeva chintya shakti mayatwadi iti. This is the definition of Achintya Bheda Bheda. Even though Achintya Bheda Bheda is not some newly coined philosophy, and as you will see here, that it is the eternal philosophy always existing, and as in the natural commentary of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Arthoyam Brahma Sutranam, Bhagavatam being the natural commentary of the Vedanta Sutra or the Brahma Sutra, the Upanishads, the Puranas, all the scriptures, the natural meaning is Achintya Bheda Bheda. But what Jiva Goswami has done here is that he has done a comprehensive dissertation on this topic and written this commentary called as Sarvasambhadini. And there in the Sarvasambhadini, he, in verses 77 and 78, he compares this with several philosophers, including Shankara, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, and he has also taken some of the Shaivite philosophers as well, even though there is no commentary that really exists right now. That is, he taken one of Bhaskara, and then in this way he has done the pluses and minuses of all this, and then he has concluded that the natural commentary of the natural explanation of the Vedanta is Achintya Bheda Bheda. So what is the word Achintya here? So this, I've taken it as from the Sarvasambhadini of verse number 77 to understand what he's meaning here by Achintya Bheda Bheda. The word Achintya, Jiva Goswami says that it is the substantive, that is the all that is substantiate, the all-pervading Lord is endowed with the Achintya Shaktis. Achintya is the inconceivable energies. Okay, so he is endowed with the inconceivable energies. It's a very distinct feature of the Vedanta Sutra, that it is Achintya. If this was removed, then it would just be like Dvaita explained by Vishnu Swami. Nimbarkacharya. Apologize for that. By Nimbarkacharya, it would be just same as that. And then there is Abheda. Jiva Goswami gives this explanation. The pot is an effect, while the clay is not an effect, it is the cause. So from clay, you make pot. Therefore, the clay, the cause, is different from the pot effect. Okay. However, ultimately, the pot and the clay are one substance only, because after all, the pot is not made of anything other than the clay. So in terms of the quality, the pot and the clay are exactly the same because they all are clay. In the same way, the Lord is spirit in nature. The individual living entity is also spirit in nature. So there is really no difference between the cause, which is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is comparable to the clay, who is comparable to the clay, and the pot, which is, let's say, whatever is expansion. So I don't want to go into the details right now, which we will cover. So if the cause is Ishvara, the Lord, and then you have the pot, the effect, whatever is coming from the Lord, in substance, since they are all spirit, it is Abheda. And this Abheda is what is covered in verse 31 of the Srimad Bhagavatam today. And then you have Bheda. But before the pot, the clay alone exists. So there is a time when, even though in Vaikuntha there is no time, so so all material analogies will not be perfect. Okay, the clay alone exists. The word cause is used for clay alone and never for the pot. So you see that there is a difference. That is bheda. That means the cause and effect. So even in substance, if the Lord and the individual living entities are the same, okay, even in substance, that both the personality of Godhead and the individual living entities are spirit, and even in substance, the pot and clay are all just clay, but the clay is still the cause and the pot is still the effect. That means it's from clay the pot can come. That means there is a difference between the cause and the effect. Likewise, the word effect is only used for the pot. Okay, so there is a difference. And this is the basic definition. So in Sarva Sambhadani, verse 77 of Paramatma Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami uses this to define for the first time what is Achintya, Bheda, Abheda. So now let's analyze this a little further. So here I have taken this Upanishad here, Taittiriya Upanishad, verse 3.1. And here the verse is that the meaning of this, the take-home message here is that the Lord is the cause. That the Lord is the cause. And this Upanishad, this verse says this from an ablative, instrumental, and locative perspective. What is the ablative? Ablative means from whom. Okay, so these are classic Sanskrit ways of saying these things, but you can find the equivalent in the grammar in Latin. Ablative is from whom. Okay, instrumental is by whom, and locative is in whom everything exists. That is the locus of existence. So the verse in Taittiriya Upanishad is this, which means that inquire about the Brahman from whom everything is born. Okay, so this is the cause. Okay, so from whom everything is born. Okay, so from whom all the things have expanded, and this is the ablative part. By whom everything is sustained. So who is the instrumental cause? Okay, who is the instrumental cause of everything? So who is by whom? Because of whom everything is sustained. Okay, so the Lord is the instrument as well. It is from whom? It is from the Lord everything is born. It is the Lord is also the instrumental cause of everything. It is by him everything is sustained, and it is into him everything enters. That means that he encompasses the sum and substance of everything. All that exists is contained in him as well. So there is all that exists is also him, in whom everything enters, and this is locative. So this verse, Taittiriya Upanishad, is also clearly in alignment with this particular verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the Narayana Kavacha, 5.8.31. So it says, inquire about the Brahman from whom everything is born, by whom everything is sustained, which is instrumental, and into whom everything enters, which is the locative. So, so if you see here, the take-home message of this Taittiriya Upanishad 3.1 is that the Lord is the cause, ablative, instrumental, locative, everything. He is the cause, from whom, by whom, in whom everything exists. Okay. Now, the Achintya, we spoke about the Bheda bit, but I'll speak in much detail about it soon. The Achintya is it shows the inconceivable features of the Lord. It is introduced even before Paramatma Sandarbha in the Bhagavat Sandarbha in 16, Anucheda 16, that these are the basic features there. I've listed the points with Jiva Goswami as mentioned there. That there is one supreme being. Number two, this supreme being is naturally endowed with inconceivable energies. Okay. And the Supreme Lord exists in 4 states. If you see here, this is directly what the Bhagavatam says in canto this particular verse here, verse number 33. And what are the 4 states? Swarupa, that is the Lord's own form, okay, which is of eternal bliss and knowledge. Vaibhava, which is the Lord's spiritual expansions, okay, that is his Lord's spiritual abode, names and associates. Jiva, who are the eternally liberated, okay, this is the Nitya Mukta and the eternally conditioned souls. So both the liberated and the conditioned soul. Pradhana, which is matter, okay, which includes Maya and all the gross and subtle elements of the universe. So what are the 4 features in which the Lord exists? One is Swarupa, which is his own form. Okay, this is the Bhagavan feature of the Lord. Okay, the Ishvara as eternal bliss in the form of Sat, Chit, Ananda. Okay, eternal bliss and knowledge. Okay, that is Swarupa. Okay, this is the personality of Godhead. Vaibhava, or his spiritual expansion. So it refers to all his the spiritual abode, name, pastimes, activities, like when we in Prabhupada quotes in this purport, the verse from Padma Purana, where he says Namachintamani Asya Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha. So where there is no difference between the name and the form of the Lord, and that is so the form of the name of the Lord is his spiritual expansion, which is Vaibhava. And so that is the second state. The third one is the individual soul, Jiva, the eternally liberated. And so there are 2 varieties here. One, those who are liberated and like us eternally, and excluding those who are liberated here in this call as well. So eternally conditioned souls, the eternally liberated and the eternally conditioned souls. And then Pradhana, who is which contains matter. And here it includes not just the gross elements, but also the subtle elements of the universe, okay, which is the mind, body, the mind, intelligence, and false ego, the subtle elements and the gross elements. So Swarupa, Vaibhava, Jiva, Pradhana. So these 4 states. So Jiva Goswami states here in the Bhagavad Gita, it is comparable to Swarupa, which is comparable to the Shaktiman, okay, which is the sun's power. Okay, and then the rest are all in the sun globe is the Vaibhava, okay, which is his expansions, and then you have the sun's rays, which is the Jiva. Okay, here clearly it is Shakti, and this is the the marginal energy. Okay, that is the Tadashta Shakti. Okay, and then you have the sun's effulgence here, and Pradhana. So this I wouldn't take this analogy as and then draw too many comparisons with this analogy, because analogies always have its own, it's just always have its own limitations, even though it is trying to help. But we have had different in different places, different analogies have used with sun globe. So I wouldn't confuse myself with this analogy. Okay, so I will explain you this for in much more clear terms soon. Next, in the Sarvas, I'm going back to Jiva Goswami's analysis in Sarvasam Vahadini, in verse Paramatma Sandarbha, Anucheda 77, where he takes up the different philosophies which have been used to explain the Vedanta Sutra, and then he one by one tries to discount them and says that I wouldn't say he just says that they are wrong, but he says that they are incomplete. Each of them by themselves are incomplete. The first one he is, which I've taken in the list here, is exclusive dualism, which is Dvaita, which was propounded by Madhvacharya, who is also in our Sampradaya Acharya. And then you have exclusive non-dualism, Kevala Dvaita, which was popularized by the first Shankaracharya. Then the third is pure non-dualism, which is called Shuddha Advaita. Vishnu Swami dealt with this, and then in more recent times, Vallabhacharya popularized this. And then you have qualified non-dualism, which is Vasishtha Dvaita. I didn't include Dvaita Dvaita here because Jiva Goswami is not really talking much about it. And except for the Achintya part of it, there's a lot of similarities between Dvaita Dvaita and our Bheda Veda, Achintya Bheda Veda. So I just let go of that. Since I've taken it exclusively from the Sarvasambhadini, I'm just not making up my own things here. So this is just expand an easy way to explain. It's a prose part, the Sarvasambhadini. It's not like Bhagavatam. It's prose, and I've just taken it from there and I've just put it in different slides and made it easy to understand. What Jiva Goswami says here is there are scriptural statements where all these philosophies, each of these philosophies, they agree with some of the statements. Okay, like for instance, if you take this particular verse here today, 31, Bhagavatam 5.8.31, 32, 33, a lot of it is pure non-dualism, Shuddha Advaita. And it ends with Bheda, because it also is asking the Lord to protect. It is saying in this verse that the cause and the effect are all the same, and then it is Abheda, but then it is also asking for this, it is declaring that the cause is Hari and asking for protection. So there the Bheda part again comes and establishes Achintya Bheda Bheda. Therefore, Jiva Goswami says that there are verses in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the Upanishads, the Vedas, Bhagavad Gita, wherever you take, which exclusively talk about exclusive dualism. For example, in when Krishna says, okay, Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo, that Krishna is the greatest of all, it does talk about dualism there. Okay, that where in the Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna says, to surrender and to surrender all the varieties of religion, and then abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender to him, then there it is talking about surrendering into a personality. So it is talking about dualism there. But then you can also say, but some of those things it is also talking about other features too. But there are also statements which are completely non-dualism as well. And we are okay with that part too, because the Brahma Samhita thus says, Advaitam, Achyutam, Anantarupam. Advaitam, we are not having problem with the Advaita part of it, because that is part of the Abheda. Okay. But the problem that the Vaishnavas have is that of the Mayavada. And that is what is dealt with in the purport. The problem is not with the Abheda part, except that we say that it's incomplete. And then we have pure non-dualism, and then you have qualified. All qualified, this is Vishishtha Advaita. And there are, like in the Bhagavad Gita itself, there are statements which are exclusively promote Vishishtha Advaita. For instance, it says that how everything rests in terms of pearls on the pearls and on the like how pearls on a string, in the same way everything rests in the world. So that is a classic example of Vishishtha Advaita, where everything rests in the body of the pan-organistic body of the Lord. I'm going to explain this little in the next slide. So if you felt a little not understanding this very clearly, just try to be patient for a minute, and I will sort this out in the next slide. So the conclusion is that the philosophy of Achintya Bheda Bheda, this is not my conclusion, this is Jiva Goswami's conclusion, is that the philosophy of Achintya Bheda Bheda is a philosophy which agrees with all the statements of the scripture, because there are statements in the scripture which exclusively talk about Vishishtha Advaita. There are statements in the scripture that talk about exclusive dualism. There are statements that talk about exclusive non-dualism or Advaita. There are statements that talk about pure non-dualism too. There is a difference between exclusive non-dualism and pure non-dualism. I'll talk about it very soon. But an Achintya Bheda Bheda is really summation of all these things minus some imaginations with reference to Mayavada. So the philosophy, so Jiva Goswami concludes in the Sarvasambhadini that the philosophy of Achintya Bheda Bheda is a philosophy which agrees with all the statements, even though he has coined the word Achintya Bheda Bheda, but it is the natural meaning of the Vedas, the Upanishads, and so we don't really have to interpret. So the natural meaning of the Vedas is the Achintya Bheda Bheda, which does not require any interpretation to substantiate any particular philosophy, whether it is non-dualism or dualism. So here, this is, I presented this in way more detail in one of the Chaitanya Bhagavata's lecture before, but still I have altered that a bit and made this as a compare and contrast between 4 different philosophy. Okay, so I will spend about 5 to 7 minutes in this, and then we will move on to some more details about Achinte Bheda Bheda. The reason why I've included these 4 is because Jiva Goswami deals with at least 3 of this in much detail and to an extent in pure non-dualism. In 7, and I have made this pictorial so that it's easy to understand. So far, it was all just words. I've made this pictorial in terms of some kind of Venn diagram, so it will be easy for everybody to pick it up. So let's talk about the exclusive non-dualism called as Kevala Advaita, okay, which was presented in more clarity by Shankaracharya, but it was there even before him. So what is Brahman? Here, it's an undifferentiated spirit. That means like all there exists is spirit. Okay, and it is not differentiated and it will never differentiate. So then who are we? Who are the individual souls? What is this world? What is this matter? So that means that even though to the conditioned soul there appears an illusory world, ultimately there is nothing called individual soul, or there is nothing called the world, because all there exists is just spirit. Okay, in some sort of a sleeping state, which is neither real nor unreal, we are able to see this, we are able to see that as though there is some world existing. But in a sense, there is no world, there is no individual soul. All there is one gross, a lump of undifferentiated soul, undifferentiated spirit. This is called as Kevala Advaita. And in order to explain this illusory world, Shankaracharya takes this concept of Maya, but in the ultimate sense, even that Maya should not exist, because if the Maya exists, then the Maya and the Brahman will become 2 and the Advaita will collapse into duality. So, simple terms, I will tell you, I'll make it very simple. Let's say that you have a lump of gold, okay, and that is spirit, okay, a lump of gold, all there exists is just a lump of gold. If someone imagines that inside the gold, each particle of the gold has like a separate identity, then it is an illusion. Okay. Or if they think that there is some other silver inside the gold, that is an illusion. So all there exists is one undifferentiated lump of spirit. Okay. And that is like an analogy is if you take a lump of gold, that is all there exists. That is all there exists. So that means like you cannot make a gold necklace out of it, or you cannot make a gold earring out of it, because a gold necklace or a gold earring is a differentiated aspect of that lump of gold, and Kevala Advaita will collapse. Okay. So the Kevala, and Jiva Goswami says that there are some statements in the scriptures that do promote that there is an undifferentiated spirit as well. Okay. There is an undifferentiated aspect as well, but it is a partial explanation of the Vedanta Sutra. Okay, so that is the top left panel here. Let's go to the bottom left panel. This is Madhvacharya. So he went to what is called as exclusive dualism, or which is also called as Dvaita, or which is complete Bheda. Okay, all different, everything is differentiated. So the Ishvara, who is the God, has his primary attributes. Okay, so this is Narayana. He's very specific that this Ishvara is Narayana, because only through the personality, the attributes of Narayana, can one naturally interpret all the Upanishads and the Vedanta Sutra, because other personalities don't fit the description, because they have some qualities and they don't have some qualities. That is why Rupa Goswami says that all the qualities are present in the personality of Krishna. Okay, all the 64 qualities, because some of those qualities which are explained in the Upanishads are not there in the personality of Brahma or Lord Shiva, because there are only about 50 of them or 54 of them or 6. Okay, so in this way, the primary attributes, so Narayana, he takes as Ishvara, the God. So we can easily understand this exclusive dualism by saying that the Lord Narayana is different from the individual souls. Lord Ishvara, the Lord, is different from matter. The soul is different from matter, and 2 souls are also different from each other. Okay, that means there will be souls who will be who will be taking up to Krishna Bhakti, and there will be souls who will not bother and will be in the material realm, and there is really no scope in that case. Okay, there is no scope, and they are going to by material conditioning, they are going to fall down. And we can see that also many people, they just do not want to take up even what to speak of spiritual well-being, even material well-being they wouldn't take up. So it leads to what is called as fall down. So either you fall down further and further, because two souls are eternally different. And there are verses which substantiate these two in a way. So nobody is cooking up things except for the Mayavada part of Kevala Dvaita here. Everything else, nobody's cooking up their meaning, because these are all these statements exist in the Vedanta Sutra, except that they ignore the other aspects, other statements they ignore. So with all respect to the Vaishnavas, they are all Vaishnavas here in whoever presented. So with all respect to them, they have, depending on the time and circumstance, they have expounded on certain statements, given more importance to certain statements. And then two of the matter is also different. Like, for example, if you take a table and a chair, or a gold and a silver, let's say, that's even better example. If you gold and a silver, they are distinctly different. So it means that two different matter also are different. So these are the fivefold difference called Panchaveda, and this is also expanded much more by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So even Bhaktivinoda Thakur acknowledges that the Vedanta Sutra has statements which also promote this dualism as well. And then the top right panel here shows about qualified non-dualism. I wrote some explanation for it because intrinsically this is a little more complicated than exclusive dualism. Is much easier to understand. Kevala Dvaita is the easiest to understand. All there exists is undifferentiated spirit. Okay, that's very easy to understand that one. And then, but the Vishishta Dvaita is a little more complicated in nature. So I wrote a little bit notes here for the devotees here. So here in Vishishta Dvaita, you have Ishvara, okay, who is Narayana, and with his primary attributes. Okay, the primary attributes could be things like his weapons and his body and his bodily features, the Kaustuba gem that he wears. These are all his, and his bluish black complexion. These are all his primary attributes. Okay, so the Ishvara and the primary attributes. Okay, and then here this yellow thing, okay, is Brahman. Okay, which is the body of the Lord. Okay, which is the body of Lord Narayana. Okay, body of Lord Narayana. And the Ishvara, okay, is like the soul of this pan-organistic body. And this pan-organistic body of the Lord is comprised of soul and matter. Okay, so that means like every planet, every let's say the sun planet, the moon, Jupiter, all one of them are differentiated aspects of this body of the Lord. That means that there is a so you have the Brahman and the Ishvara are not the one and the same in Vishishta Dvaita. Ishvara is the Lord Narayana with his primary attributes here. And then, okay, with his primary attributes. And then you have the soul and matter, which are, they go from an undifferentiated state to a differentiated state. So that is when a particular planet is created. And then it is when it goes back to the undifferentiated state, that particular planet gets annihilated. So in this way, when souls in this material world or whatever, when they come into, when they appear in this world, so it's like, so they're all everything. So when it is in the Bhagavatam, in the second canto, you can see that when they're all existing in latent state in the body of Mahavishnu, but then they also get differentiated, right? So here you have the soul; these are differentiated. The spirit, okay, differentiates into individuals. Okay, you have the individual soul, you have matter, and all of them form in the pan-organistic body of the Lord. So this is like a 2-minute description of qualified non-dualism, which Jiva Goswami explains, and then you have pure non-dualism. Okay, this was Vishnu Swami. He is the Sampradaya Acharya here, but then you have Vallabhacharya who expanded this, and where all there exists is just Krishna. Okay, all there exists is just Krishna or Brahman. Okay, and what is it? What are the individual souls? The individual souls are like appearances of waves. Okay, so they are all like waves appearing from this. Okay, so that means like when, let's say there is a wave appearing out of an ocean, the wave is non-different from that of the ocean because it is the same sea wave. So the appearance of the universe is just like waves that come in, and when the wave gets taken back into the ocean, okay, it is like annihilation of that particular universe. So a universe comes in and then it goes out. But there is no difference between Krishna and soul, because the total thing that exists is Krishna. Okay, so that is the difference between Kevala Dvaita and Shuddha Dvaita, because here Vallabhacharya here is not denying the personality of Godhead. Okay, there is Krishna, but sum total everything put together is called Krishna. So that is pure non-dualism. Okay, and I have about 2 more slides, one, and then I will talk about the protection of the Lord for a few minutes. So Jiva Goswami further explains here that there is a problem here of what is called as infinite regress. So this is there in the Paramatma Sandarbha 77-78. So the analysis of Jiva Goswami is this, that this Achintya Beda Beda is the natural tarka, like when you are, it is so obvious, because when there are people who recognize that accepting Bheda or Abheda gives rise, see, if you accept Bheda, then there are so many statements in the Shastra which talks about Abheda. Okay, so that means that you have to say, okay, Bheda is not correct, so let's go to Abheda. So Shankaracharya must be correct, or Vishnu Swami must be correct, let's accept Abheda. Then if you read a series of Abheda comments, then you find that there is something faulty about just everything being Abheda. Now let's accept Madhvacharya and let's accept that everything is Bheda. Okay, so that means like if you accept some statements of the Vedas being Bheda, some statements being Abheda, then you just go back and forth. Oh, this is correct. No. Then that's correct. So this, it leads to what is called as in logic, infinite regress. That means the philosophy of Achintya Beda Beda, Jiva Goswami says, is a philosophy without which is without this problem of endless regression, where you don't have to go and substantiate the statements of Bheda alone, or you don't have to go and substantiate just the statements of Abheda. And both are occurring and that is inconceivable. So I explained the other philosophies. This is my summary slide of Achintya Beda Beda. Which can be put, I don't think I can make, I've made it as simple as possible. I'll spend about 5 minutes for this, and then I'll just talk about the protection of the Lord, which is the last part of this particular comment verses, and then I will stop after that. So this is the metaphysics of Achintya Beda Beda. So you have Brahman. The definition of Brahman in Achintya Beda Beda is just that it is spirit. Aham Brahmasmi. So that means that I am spirit, Krishna is also spirit as Parabrahman. So Krishna is spirit. So by quality, Krishna and the individual soul are of the same nature. They both are spirit. So here, if you see this panel here, so everybody is just the spirit. That is Brahman. Brahman refers, and in fact, Isa Upanishad says, Hiranmayena Patrena Satyaspikitam Mukam Tatvam Pushan Darshana Satya Dharmaya Drishti. So it means that it is this effulgence. So this entire spirit is what is called as Brahman. Okay, so and then you have matter. So there are 2 facets of this matter. One is matter as it is, that is how a liberated soul would see matter, which is reality, and then how matter would be seen by a conditioned soul, a soul that appears who is under illusion, which is us. Okay, so if their soul is conditioned, then they see the matter as distinctly different from Krishna, like how we see this world. We see a shopping store. Okay, we go to a store, a grocery store or a mall. We see that a house. Okay, we see that everything is distinctly different from Krishna and nothing to do with Krishna. So here, everything is duality. Okay, so this is not that of a learned person. A learned person doesn't see Vadantita Tatvidam Tatvam Yajnanam Advayam. Okay, a learned person doesn't see it that way. Okay, so Matter appears to be different from the personality of Godhead, okay, from the spirit under illusion, okay. But when one is under proper understanding of the scriptures, then they can see that matter is actually a spiritual entity, that any matter is actually spiritual, and so we need to spiritualize matter. And that is how we are even offering food, which will appear to atheist as matter, but for the theist, the food appears spiritual, and Krishna accepts only something which is spiritual, because there is nothing called matter in the ultimate analysis of things. And then you have individual soul. And what is the individual soul? You have here, again, you have the Abheda aspect, okay, which is what is referred to in this particular verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam 6.8.31 and 32-33, where you see all the Brahman nature, okay, so that is Krishna, all pervading, Vasudeva Sarvamiti. So everywhere, all that exists is Krishna, okay, that Vasudeva aspect, everywhere. I'm not talking about the Chatur Vyuha here, but that Krishna is all pervading. So that Krishna is all pervading, okay, and the individual soul is the same spirit, okay, which is, and we are, even though we are pot, we are still part of the clay, okay. So that is the Abheda aspect. And then you have the Bheda aspect. And what is the Bheda aspect? Even though these souls, okay, even these souls made of spiritual nature, they all have forms. Just as that Krishna has a form, the individual soul also has a form, which could be in the form of a grass, which could be in the form of a mountain, and where the mountain is living, okay, living soul, which is in relationship with Krishna in Vaikuntha. Okay, so in Vaikuntha, okay, in the spiritual abode, okay, where no such material distinction exists, okay, every living entity is of a distinct spiritual form. So that means that this gross spirit, okay, gross spirit, okay, is differentiated spirit and exists in all its variegatedness, okay. And the individual soul is just the marginal energy or Tatashta Shakti of this Lord. And these individual souls are separated part and parcel. This is a distinct difference between Achintya Bheda and Vishishtadvaita, where Vishishtadvaita, everything is pan-organistic body of the Lord, everything exists. But here you have, they are a separated part and parcel of the Lord. And that is very clear in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7.3, I think, the verse, and where it, the verse is about earth, water, fire, air. Okay, so there it talks about bhinna, okay, a separated part and parcel. Okay, so you can see there that every verse of the Bhagavad Gita, how beautifully it explains the Achintya Bheda Veda. So that's the real beauty of the philosophy, our philosophy, Achintya Bheda Veda. And then you have Bhagavan. Okay, this is the personality of Godhead in its Ishvara Parama, in his supreme form as the energetic Shaktiman and as the transcendental source for everything. He's the source and he stays separate from all his energies. Okay, he stays separate from all his energies, and this is clearly the Bheda aspect. Okay, and the Lord has nothing to do with this world in that form, and even for that material expansion, he expands as Vishnu and does his form. But Krishna is he has no reason to come to this world or anything. He's untouched and there in the spiritual abode. And then you have the super soul, which is the Paramatma. And he also exists, okay, Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavaniti, Shabdayate. What can be more comprehensive than this? So, and this is the imminent expansion of the Lord. So that means in every atom, so the Brahma Samhita says, Paramanu means in all the atoms, Krishna is present. So he's not really present imminent, okay? Means he's not only present transcendent in the Bhagavan feature in Vaikuntha, he's also present in the immanent form in every particle of this world. Whether it is, we might think that this is matter, like in a gold particle, everywhere he's present, and that is why the electrons are moving, because the Paramatma is providing energy for all these electrons or protons, everything to move and so on. So that means that the Lord is present everywhere. So that is why we don't disrespect even matter. We don't disrespect matter, because matter, there is nothing called as matter in the ultimate sense of analysis. So regarding I made another picture here which talks about matter under illusion. So you have souls under the illusion. So you have a cloud. So there are under the cloud, you have those under illusion. And then, so there for them, all this matter appears distinctly different from Krishna. But those who are liberated, they see it. There is no cloud. The cloud of Maya has separated, and all they see is the as them as part and parcel of the separated part and parcel of the personality of Godhead, and as the servant of Krishna. The last part, it also, even though this verse talks about Abheda, but then it also asks the Lord for protection. So that means, like, without, how can undifferentiated spirit be able to protect? That means that there must be the person. And here, Vyasadeva, he's also citing here Harihi in this verse. That means that he's identifying that substantive aspect of the Lord is Hari. It's not somebody else, but it is Hari. Okay, so, but to make a point more clear, even though the Lord protects everybody, he distinctly protects. He protects especially those who come to him, who depend on him, okay, who depend that the Lord will be able to protect him. And so, for example, Uttara was hurrying towards the Lord Krishna in fear, okay, and he protected with Sudarshanena Swastrena. This is the verse in the Bhagavatam. The Pandavas were 100% dependent on the protection of the Lord, and they were great warriors. They all could defend themselves, but they depended on the protection of the Lord. It does not matter how proficient one is, how potent one is, but one should feel dependent on the personality of God, okay? The next one, the secret to success is to take refuge under the protection of the Supreme Lord, because without the sanction of the Lord, nothing is possible. My last but one slide, the living entities should seek protection from Krishna. Okay, it is our responsibility to seek protection from Krishna. Even Dhritarashtra, in a very precarious condition at the end of his life, when he had this conversation with Vidura, where Vidura has explained to Dhritarashtra that one should therefore seek the protection of the Supreme Lord. For this human life, the purpose of this human form of life is to seek protection from the Lord. He's saying that this is something that the living entity needs to actively do. So, and then in the 2.2.5, okay, this is King Parikshit is actually saying this. According to the regulations of Sanatana Dharma, one is trained from the beginning of life to seek the protection of the Lord. It looks like there are two hands raised. I'm not sure what it is. I hope.
No, Prabhu, we will be waiting. We just want to queue up, that's all.
Okay. And then this is my last slide, I think, that the living entities require protection, okay? And this is Bhagavatam 1.14.32-33, Rama, Krishna, Bhuja is the arms, Ashraya is shelter. So the Jiva Tattvas, okay, they are infinitesimal potential particles of the Lord, and they always require Rama or protection of Balarama and Krishna. It's referring to Balarama, here is Balarama and Krishna, Bhuja, Ashraya, under the protection of the Lord. Okay, and Bhagavatam says that if one is not seeking this, they are unfortunate. Mandha Bhagya. Mandha means very dim-witted. Bhagya means fortune. So these are one is very unfortunate. And here Prabhupada in the commentary, he says that sometimes a patient dies in spite of a good physician and good medicine. Thus, without the protection of the Lord, one cannot live with or without parents. So even a parent, we think that we are all responsible for protecting our kids, but ultimately it is the Lord who is protecting. Okay, sorry, I do have one more slide. Tesham nityabhiyukthanam yogakshemam bhamyaham. So this is the verse where Krishna says that he will take care of us. By the mercy of the Lord, such a devotee never comes back to this material condition of life. Kshema, okay, refers to the merciful protection of the Lord. The Lord helps the devotee to achieve Krishna consciousness by yoga. And when he becomes fully Krishna conscious, the Lord protects him from falling down to a miserable yoga kshema vahamyaham, to this miserable conditioned life. That means that, see, the beauty of this verse here, Canto 5, Chapter 8, verse 31, 32, 33 is, even though it is talking about Abheda, the verse itself there is seeking protection from Hari. So they are not happy with just the Abheda part. They want protection. Okay, and that is referring to the personality of Godhead. If I have said anything wrong, I would really beg for forgiveness and for devotees to correct here. They are very advanced devotees assembled here, even though I'm not qualified to speak on any of the subject matter. I am simply sharing the research and thesis that I keep doing. And so I again thank for this opportunity, and please forgive me for any offenses today to the Vaishnavas and or to any buddy and to the Lord. And Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Again, thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you, Vinita Gandharati Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare
All
Krishna.
Krishna Prabhupada. What a beautiful class, Prabhu. Certainly very technical, as you said at the very start, but certainly amazing, amazing class, Prabhu. Thank you for all that preparation that you did for the class. That's so beautiful, Prabhu. Thank you. Chinta Veda Veda. Certainly, everybody wants to dig more into that, and more you dig, more you go inside. Rupa, Vaibhava, Jiva, Pradhana. You explained it so beautiful, Prabhu. So beautiful. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Prabhu, I won't take much time because you have to leave early too, as Meeta Mataji was saying at the very start of the class. Prabhuji, there are, as you know, a few hands raised. So we'll go with the Priti Vilasini Mataji. Hare Krishna Mataji, Dhanva Pranam.
Krishna Prabhu. Prabhu, you have time. Is it okay to ask?
Yes, Mataji. I hope I'll be able to answer your question. So, but
No, I have three questions, but I'll keep it really quick. I'll go really quick.
Okay.
So the very first slide, Prabhu, you did talk about the different philosophers who came up with the commentaries on the Vedanta Sutras, and you did mention that.
Is this one, Mataji, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe even maybe the very first slide. Yeah, maybe we can start from here. Yeah.
Okay.
So you were mentioning about the different philosophers or theologians who came up with all the philosophies based out of the Vedanta Sutras. At that time, you mentioned in Shaivism, right? Because it's very difficult to establish to write a commentary on the Vedanta Sutras in the Shaiva perspective. So you said somebody wrote it. So can you tell a little more, like, was he successful in writing a complete Vedanta Sutra and establishing a Siddhanta based out of purely the Vedanta Sutras without including Agamas, I'm asking? So was it successful? And you said Bhaskara, is that the name?
Yeah, that's the name. That is Jiva Goswami cites that in this verse 77. And we don't have that commentary. I don't think, but there are parts of it I think are there, but I'm not so sure, Mataji, whether about that. But the only Vedanta Sutra commentaries that exist right now are one of Shankaracharya, which is called the Sharirika Bhashya, Ramanujacharya's Sri Bhashya, Nimbarkacharya's Vedanta Parijata Saurabha, Madhvacharya's Madhva Bhashya, and then Vallabhacharya is called Anubhashya, and then ours is Baladeva Vidyabhushana's Govinda Bhashya. These are the only 6 existing commentaries right now. Sure. And there are many people who have commented about the Vedanta Sutra before, even Adi Shankaracharya, his own spiritual master. They have also written explanations, but they are all not, it is not there right now as comprehensive. It doesn't exist as it is right now. So these are only 6. Out of the 6, if you see, 5 of them are Vaishnava commentaries. And there is only one commentary outside that, which is Sharika Bhashya, which is non-denominational per se, because all there is just undifferentiated spirit.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So Prabhu, when you mentioned in one of the slides about, I don't know which one this was, maybe it was one of the philosophies that you were explaining about the Vibhava incarnations. You can go to
here. Vaibhava.
The Vaibhava incarnations. So when we say Vaibhava, we mean to say not only his spiritual abode names associates, do we also include all the incarnations that he takes from time to time, all his expansions, his incarnations, his Paramatma form, everything is included in the Vaibhava here when Jiva Goswami talks about the different classifications?
So there is, in another part in Jiva Goswami also clarifies that there are what are called as swa. Okay, swa is like self, his own, like when he expands as, let's say, Vasudeva, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, they're not different from him. Okay, so they are his own expansions, and then there are expansions like his associates, and so there is a his those who are let's say that the individual soul, okay, even if they are liberated, they are in the jiva part. But here in Vaibhava is his own spiritual expansions. You're correct, Mataji. You're correct. Let me not
It
confuse
includes
you.
everyone. It includes Vyuha, Paramatma,
Correct.
all the Archa, everybody.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, Prabhu, thank you.
Thank you.
2 more questions. I'll be really quick.
Yeah, no problem.
I have written this down as, so when we talk about our Siddhanta, Chinta, Veda, we say that we make it complete as compared to the other philosophies by including Achintya, inconceivable, right? Inconceivability part is something that we explicitly state compared to other philosophies. But how do the remaining philosophies, other than, of course, Kevala Advaita, because they just call everything Maya, whenever there is a place where they have to explain something that doesn't fit into their philosophy, they call it Maya and they cover it up. But how about the other Vaishnava philosophies? Because they have to explain the inconceivability, to reconcile verses, right? So what is the strategy they use? Is there anything that they specifically have used as a strategy?
So I want to make a small statement here that even Kevala Advaita, they, even though they don't have this Achintya, they have what is called as Anirvichiniya. Okay. So that means that something that cannot be described. So they can never describe why this matter is doesn't have any real existence. Okay, because so it is neither real nor unreal, that kind of a thing. So, but anyway, let me not go into that. It will take too much time. But since in the form of Achintya, so this, one should not think of this Achintya as just the something which is beyond our, just only beyond our, just as an adjective. Okay, like I will tell you for Madhvacharya, I'll take that one example, okay, so that it will explain there. Everything is explainable. Okay, in Tattvavada, everything is explainable either through sense perception, Pratyaksha, Anumana, or Shabda. Either of these three methods, which are all considered valid in Madhva Bhashya, everything is explainable. So where is something called as inconceivable then, right? Because, but the Lord has infinite attributes, but that also is conceivable to the living entity because he has these extraordinary features. So one should not confuse between that extraordinary and what is inconceivable. But what we are saying about Achintya, inconceivable here, is the bridge between Bheda and Abheda is inconceivable. Okay, how can it exist simultaneously? How can it simultaneously be an undifferentiated spirit and simultaneously also be differentiated as an effect? Okay, so that is inconceivable. So so Madhva scholars might just say, okay, we are just, since we are not able to really explain Bheda, so we are just using the word Achintya. And because it is logically incorrect that you'll have some statements about the Vedas talking about Bheda and some statements talking about Abheda. Only either of the two can be true by the theory of Nyaya. Okay, so or the science of Nyaya. So I should say theory, science of Nyaya. Only either of it could be true. So that is what Madhvacharya. So I took Madhvacharya as an example. In Madhvacharya, there cannot be anything inconceivable to even understand that there is something called Bheda and there is some, and that is why he, in his explanation of Madhva Bhashya, which also appears in his Mahabharata Tatparya Nirnaya, where he clearly says he discounts that Bheda will not be okay because it has to be either Bheda or Abheda. It cannot be just both.
So in that case, they would completely dismiss the statements that may not fit into their philosophy.
No, but they will interpret it. No, they won't dismiss it in that sense, but they will interpret it in such a way. Like I'll give you an example of Kevala Advaita. So where Krishna says, Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo. Okay, so I am the greatest of all. Okay, so here Krishna, the personality of Godhead, is saying he's the greatest of all. So this is called Bhagavad Gita as it is. That means Krishna is saying he's the greatest of all. Okay, there's nothing to interpret there. But what would Kevala Advaita say? Because there is nothing called personality of Godhead, I there, when Krishna says I, it refers to Krishna's forgive my offense. It refers to Krishna's soul. Krishna's soul refers to the universal undifferentiated spirit. And since we are also the same undifferentiated spirit, it is as good as saying that the individual soul, that means that the spirit is the greatest of all. So that means that there is nothing here called Krishna as the greatest of all. This is called as interpretation. Okay. So when Krishna says, I am the greatest of all, by Kevala Dvaita, you can interpret it through all these methods to say that it is not Krishna who is actually greatest of the all, but it is the individual soul, which means it is, I mean, here there is nothing called individual soul in Advaita, but the undifferentiated spirit who is the greatest of all. You got it, Mataji?
Yes, so which means it boils down to every philosopher will have to make reconciling every
They will have to reconcile to make sure, but they will have to reconcile. That is why but if you take those statements as it is, you won't have a problem. But you can take the statements like Aham Brahmasmi also as it is, that I am spirit. And you can also take statements like, but here Krishna is saying, Manmana Bhava Mad Bhakto Madhyajivam. And Krishna says, come and offer obeisance to me. So whom are you going to offer? You're going to offer obeisance to yourself, right? So you have to give more explanation to prove those kind of statements. Because that is a Bheda statement. Manmana Bhava Mad Bhakto Madhyajivam Namaskara. So that statement is a Bheda statement. Okay, but to show that in the light of Kevala Dvaita, you have to make more interpretations to show that you are reconciling with yourself instead of saying it is not like really you go and do a namaskar to something, because if Krishna doesn't exist in the sense of the Kevala Dvaita philosophers, then you have to give some explanation for it.
Makes sense, Prabhu. So we are gearing more towards just using it as it is. Of course, I won't discount that even at some points in, if you talk about all the, all the Veda, every verse of every sutra of the Vedanta Sutra, we will also have to do certain interpretations in one sense, but we are trying to maximize the actual meaning, like, trying to make it as.
So those interpretations, Mataji, I would just call it as expanding the concept, without changing the meaning of it. Okay. So, yeah, without changing the meaning of it. And that actually, even if you take the Gaudiya Vaishnava bhajans like Narottama Das Thakur, they're all actually just explanations for different scriptures, but the meaning is not changed.
Right.
So same way, if you take the Sri Vaishnava Arvas, when the meaning is not changed, whatever like the Pasurams that they sing or the Vaishnava Gaudiya Vaishnava, the meaning is not changed. They say the same thing. They do not deviate from the message of the Vedanta Sutra. So they are like, I would say they're more explanations rather than interpretation.
Got you. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
Thank you, Mataji. I hope I answered your question.
One last question was about, thanks for, again, the beautiful, the philosophies, the diagrams that you had already made earlier. And thanks for the revision as well. Prabhu, if you go back to that slide, four philosophies, I don't know if I asked this. No, I didn't ask this earlier, so I want to get this a little more clear. I'm now going to compare qualified non-dualism with pure non-dualism. Now, when I just look at this, it all looks the same again. I don't know why.
No, that's good, Mataji. That's very good. That is good. It looks sometimes because there is not a lot of difference between all these things. There are differences, but there are also not a lot of, everything is Bheda.
So what is the chief differences that you would point out between qualified non-dualism and pure non-dualism?
So in the qualified non-dualism, Mataji, if you see here, they're all a very beautiful. Ramanujacharya is so intelligent also, his Lakshmana, his it comes with a concept here that everything rests in the body of the Lord. So that means like the body, so everywhere you can appreciate the form of the Lord. So everything is like contained in the form of the Lord. That is the beauty of this philosophy here. And here, like for instance, there is nothing like body of the Lord. Okay, so, and in fact, in pure non-dualism, there is nothing like differentiating or something like that, because all there exists again here is they are coming like waves. Okay, so if you can take that, that is like a chief difference between the two. They're coming like waves, and then they're disappearing as waves. Okay, and so a wave, so one universe. So this is like, I just made, this is one of the worst creations, I think, what I've done here. But
actually, I was telling earlier, it's one of the best you have made so far.
Okay, so this is like a wave of a ocean, of a sea, and then it comes, that is creation of the universe. Our universe we created, and then our universe goes back. Okay, and it goes back, so that means that it has gone back to its undifferentiated, means it is in its and then another universe gets created, and then the wave goes back. But you see, the wave and the ocean, they're exactly the same. Nobody is going to say that the ocean is different and then a wave coming out of it is something different, right? So that is pure non-dualism.
So, which means here the chief point of analysis would be, this is Sharira Shariri, that kind of analogy over wave and ocean. Is it just is it only the analogical point of view that is really different? Or is it something more that is making
there is more here, Mataji. But one thing, I have only about 8 minutes left. I have to take my daughter to school. Okay. So I just don't know whether should I go on or
no, I think you can take the other questions. There are two more questions, Prabhu. We'll talk about this later.
Okay. Thank you, Mataji. Just want to make sure that everything is okay by the moderator. So
yes.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Prabhu, if you need to leave for the daughter, I think
I have about 7-8 minutes.
Okay.
I just have to leave by 35. That's it. So,
okay,
5 minutes.
Devotees, please be short with the questions, as Prabhuji has to leave with the daughter. That's very important for him.
This is a very detailed thing. Someday, if I do get an opportunity with some other verse which is exclusively talking about Vishishtadvaita, or exclusively talking about dualism, then what I could do is I could take that opportunity and then I'll do a little thesis on that particular thing. So it will just expand Vishishtadvaita for the whole lecture, So, and there are verses for each of these four, except for Mayavada, there are verses for everything else. So even Kevala Advaita, there are verses. So I will expand each one, and I can do one whole lecture just on Vishishtadvaita.
Sure.
Please do so, Prabhu. Please do so. Thank you so much. So, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So I'll make it very short. I know you have to go for your daughter's school. What I want to know is that we know from Srila Prabhupada and our Dvaita philosophy that Supreme Lord Krishna is, we are equal in quality, but in quantity is Vibhu Atma, we are Anu Atma. And all the four Sampradayas, they're believing that we are not Sharir, we are Atma. And we are servant of Jiva Sattva Krishna Nityadas. So this Vishishtadvaitam and the Nimbarka Sampradaya, everything is actually same. Why they made it Vishishtadvaitam and Dvaitam? It's all the same. No, there should be one Advaita and other one is Dvaita. Why again so many different? It's not differences. No, it is only little different explanation. No, what exactly? Why that is one question I have got. Other one is, I want to just make it short. Lord Shiva is the greatest Vaishnava, and Lord Shiva has created one Sampradaya, which is the Vallabha Sampradaya. Rudra Sampradaya. So there Vallabhacharya is coming in that one, Vallabhacharya, that Pushti mark.
Yes.
So what I'm telling is, Lord Shiva came and did this Advaita, it's a Shankaracharya, because he was ordained by Krishna to do that. But in the end, he made it correct that Bhaja Govindam, Govindam, Bhaja Mudamate. So he told that everybody has to surrender to Govinda. But the people, followers, they are still misinterpreting, telling that Bhaja Govindam, Govindam, Bhaja Mudamate. Govinda is only for the Mudas. We are not Mudas, so will not. That means they are just again making some confusion what Shiva wanted to tell. Actually, Shiva could have explained to his people that don't do that, everything is Dvaita. Then there will be no difference, because impersonal Brahma Jyoti is again part of there is sun god, sun globe, and sunrise. That is the Paramatma Brahman. Go to my room. Right. So that is the.
Prabhuji, I'll make it quick here, just in the interest of time. So, for one point, Prabhu, as it is actually very nice that many devotees here, they're also seeing that there are a lot of things common between these philosophies too. Okay, and there are some. When we go deep into the philosophy, there are things that differ by the way by which, but a lot of it is common. But that is the beauty of Vaishnavism, that there is so much variegatedness that everybody, every living entity, they approach Krishna in a certain way, and they have the freedom to do so. Krishna has given the freedom. So Krishna has given the freedom for them to, if they are not able to see the, if there is a soul who sees themselves as distinctly different in exclusive dualism, like Madhvacharya, all his followers, and we are also in that lineage. But if they're all Vaishnavas and they've also approached Krishna, and Krishna has, and they've also gone back to Vaikuntha. So that means that so there are so many facets and every living of this absolute truth, and living entities approach the personality of Godhead depending on their nature. They take certain things. So that is why we don't go and say Dvaita is all wrong, we don't say those things. They're all explaining parts of it, and those living entities who want to take that up, we in fact, after so in this way they take it up further and they move forward in it. As long as they are serving Krishna, it really doesn't matter if they are fitting into this. But Achintya Bheda gives a very comprehensive picture of it, and the reason it gives comprehensive picture is because it takes everything into all statements, it interprets as it is. And the second part with respect to Shankaracharya, what you talked about, is just because at that time and circumstance it was required, because the country was entirely being taken by Shunyavada. And therefore, since it was all Shunyavada at that time, void, everything is voidistic, they are not just going to go directly. A lot of people are not going to go directly and just say, okay, let's just go worship the personality of God. But at the same time, what we should see here is, even at the time when Shankaracharya was there propounding, even at that time, Vaishnavas were there. Vaishnavas were there before, during, and after Shankaracharya. They were always there. Yeah. So I'll leave it there, Prabhu. And this one more hand.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank
Thank you, Raj Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. But our dear Praladana Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, are you there?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, thank you. My question is very simple, all right, and that is that I'm like a dog who is trying to understand that there is a government in the Washington DC. So my question is, this Achintya thing as a conditioned soul, will I be able to understand it any time of evolution of my consciousness, Prabhuji? That's my question.
What is the question, Prabhu? I still didn't understand that.
That my consciousness right now, all right, is a conditioned consciousness, and I cannot understand how am I different from Lord Krishna. Mama Ivamsa Jiva Loke Jiva Buddha. How am I different? Will I be able to understand the real meaning of Achintya Bheda Ved at any time of evolution of my consciousness? This is my question.
So that is also something which is distinctly different, and I'm not talking about you per se here, Prabhu. Like, for example, in Tattvavada of Madhvacharya, unless one understands the philosophy correctly, liberation is not possible. But in our Acharyas, in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, we have never given that much importance to all these Venn diagram kind of a thing, and just understanding all these things. Like, for example, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to the Srirangam temple, there was somebody reading the Bhagavad Gita, and he barely he read it all incorrect. But then but then he said what he understood from the Bhagavad Gita was that he saw the personality of Godhead there in the chariot, and that he understood. And Mahaprabhu said that he understood Bhagavad Gita correctly, and that is the message of the Bhagavad Gita. So the sum and substance is, understanding any of these things is of no use if we are not able to surrender and serve Krishna and be able to chant his name. So if that is there, none of these things is required, and Krishna will provide us the knowledge, whatever is needed. Krishna, that is that last sentence that I had, that yoga kshemam bhami. Whatever thing that we lack, Krishna will provide. Whatever we have, Krishna will preserve. And therefore, even though I have made this lecture very academic, it's not like I'm a fan of this lecture myself, because after all, if it is not able to move anybody's heart, what is the use of such a lecture? So I rather the lecture be something which moves somebody's heart and be helpful to somebody rather than all this academic knowledge. But the only thing which, a little thing which is academic knowledge, at least we can have a little thing that the whole philosophy is not coming somewhere just out of nowhere. It has a strong foundation and a strong basis, and therefore we can use it to strengthen our bhakti. Therefore, that can be, that I would say is the take-home message from this, that that we don't have to start from scratch. Such an elaborate analysis has already been done. So I'll just stop there. Prabhu, I hope if I didn't say anything, I would, if you can, because you usually have great realizations. So if you can share your realization, that'd be great. But this is a very long conversation, of course. So, but please forgive me for any offense, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
We appreciate Prabhuji so much, and thank you very much. That would pranam, and please come again and give us more enlightenment. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Very beautiful answer.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you. We just need to love Krishna. That's for sure. So, dear devotees, Prabhu has to leave. Let us pay our obeisance to Prabhuji. Let us thank him. Prabhuji. Grantra Srimad Bhagavatam. Guru Srila Prabhupada.
Gauranga, Nityananda.
Radhe Radhe.
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna.